and welcome to Connections. We are a Bible study of the New Hope Baptist Church. We are physically located in the city of Jersey City, New Jersey, but thanks to the World Wide Web, we are wherever you are, and we are so grateful that you have taken time to tune into our broadcast. Well, we're going to get right down to it. Today is a day that we celebrate and remember the life and the legacy of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A lot of folk could be celebrating his birthday on Monday as a federal holiday, but his birthday is actually on today. So hopefully throughout the day, you've taken time to meditate on his life and what he has meant to so many people. And it's important for us to keep his legacy alive because a lot of people in this season are trying to rewrite history and trying to say that Dr. King did not stand for some of the things that he championed. But we're thankful that God raised him up and that his legacy continues to live on. And we need to continue to celebrate what he has done for us. So this episode, we are continuing connections, and we have been looking at spiritual warfare. And for the last week, we kind of went deeper into Dr. Clarence Walker's book, Breaking Strongholds. Now, we've been looking at spiritual warfare now for several months. But now we kind of like turned and trying to look more specifically, if you will, at spiritual warfare as it particularly affects people of color. Okay, now we're not suggesting that it does not affect everybody. We do want to highlight some ways that it has been particularly pernicious as it applies to people of color. And we hopefully at the end of this episode, you may find out that you may be living underneath some of these strongholds and not even be aware of it. Okay, so we're going to get started. We always invite you to join us by putting your comments on the comment field. And from time to time, we'll put them on the screen. We also have comments. We'll put them here like this so that we'll do it like this. So folk on both Facebook and YouTube are able to follow our comment thread. Okay, so we're gonna get started as we usually do by raising some questions to kind of like to encourage you to get involved. Okay, so we're going to be a first question. What's something that you were taught not to expect too much from? What is something that you were taught not to expect too much from? Okay. And last episode, we started talking about strongholds and some of the ideas, the arguments that we have lived with over our lifetime. A lot of those arguments started when we were young. Okay. So what is something that you were taught not to expect too much from? Okay. Glad to see Gloria Graham, Tiffany Goodwin, Ross, Elizabeth Jackson. Glad to see all of y'all on. And we know there's so many more on, but thank you for putting your name up in the comment field. Okay. So what's something you were taught not to expect too much from? Okay. All right. I was really taught not to expect too much from government. Tiffany says other people. Okay. All right. Other people. Okay. not to expect a lot from people. Okay. All right. All right. So some of us have been given these lessons right ahead of time, right? Don't trust people. Don't expect too much from people. Um, and we're going to dig deeper in this episode why we were taught those kind of things, why we were given those messages at an early age. So if you've ever wondered why you think like this, hang on. This is the episode that you need to be in as we try to unpack some of this uh, today. Okay? All right. So let's look at another question here I wanted to bring. What feels safer, expecting disappointment or risking hope? Which is a safer one for you? Expecting disappointment or risking hope? Okay. What feels safer? Okay, that's the question. What feels safer? Expecting disappointment or risking hope? Which is a safer bet call for you? There isn't a right or wrong answer. We just want to start getting to think about um, how we have been socialized, how we've been brought up in this culture. Okay. So, what feels safer, expecting disappointment or risking hope? Okay. Gloria Graham says expecting disappointment. All right. Feels safer. Roz says risking hope. Elizabeth Jackson says expecting disappointment. Sharon says disappointment. Easier. Betty Gilliard, expecting disappointment. Deacon Anderson, good to see you, expecting disappointment. Tiffany Goodwin, expecting disappointment. Brenda Perry, expecting disappointment. We seem to have a kind of most people leaning toward expecting disappointment feels safer. So we need to be asking ourselves, why is this? Why is this, generally speaking, and this is not a scientific poll, but why is it that you and I have a safer feeling with disappointment than we do risking hope? Okay. And J.M. Carter says, of course, it depends on the situation. Okay. So we're going to raise these questions because some of us have a natural predilection. We have a natural bent. We bend one way or the other. I like to try to consider myself optimistic, but sometimes I lean negative. Okay. And you got to ask yourself, why is that? Why do I tend to be this way as opposed to the other way? Okay. Elizabeth Jackson says, because it wouldn't hurt as much. Wow. So maybe, and we'll find out this later in the study, we need to start thinking about are these things that we've learned, are they instinctive or are they survival? Are they learned or they're taught to us? We don't know. Not yet. Okay. All right. So, what did your family teach you about authority? What did your family teach you about authority? Okay. This is particularly interesting question in light of what happened last week in Minnesota, where the 37-year-old mother was. We had another TV shooting. I mean, it's almost as if in this age we live in, these things, George Floyd, different things, it becomes a TV story. Okay. Now, when I grew up, I was taught not just to respect authority, but when it came to the police and it came to law enforcement, I was taught to get out of their way. If you saw them coming, flee. People wonder why black boys, black girls run from police. A lot of it is because it's what we were taught, you know. Uh, don't be caught around the police, you know. You know, yes, it was respect, but gee, if I got lost, the probably the last person growing up I would go to is a police. We were taught to beware. Uh, okay, so let me look at some of the responses. Okay, respect authority, respect, 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 respect. Okay, so most folks were taught to respect authority. Okay, so when I see what happened, and I've seen 3, 4 different camera angles, and I said to my wife, I said, gee, if it were me on that street in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I probably would have suffered the same fate, because whenever the cops are coming, if they're trying to snatch me out the car, I'm not going to sit there and wait for them to do that. I'm going to try to take my car and get out of that environment as soon as possible. All right, just something to think about. Okay. Uh, and we about authority. Uh, it's Betty Gilliard said, "Listen to your elders." Now, this is interesting because she said, "Right or wrong." That's a good point. And we'll come back to that. Respect again. Okay. So let's delve a little bit deeper into this spiritual warfare. Okay. Now, we're going to be talking about overcoming resistance to change. That's what we're going to be talking about. Overcoming resistance to change. Now, if you've ever known that you should change and wonder why you can't make the change, this is going to be a great Bible study for you. Okay. We have, let's see, I don't know who that is, but we want to thank you for chiming in with respect. Okay. All right. All right. So thank you so much. So we're going to talk about overcoming resistance to change. Okay. We started talking last time about this. Okay. Let me put it on the screen. Ask you the same question I asked you before. What is this? Now, if you were in the last episode, you know. Okay. What is that? Okay. What is that? Anybody? Let's go backwards. Okay. What is this? What is that? All right. What did we say it was last episode? Right. It is a castle, but we called it something else, didn't we? It may be a jail, but we called it something else, didn't we? Okay. Now, some of you have got it, okay? And it showed up on your screen, okay? Yes, it's a castle, but when we talked last week, we identified this as a stronghold, a stronghold, a stronghold, okay? A stronghold. Now, stronghold resembles a prison, resembles a jail, resembles a castle. It is fortified. Remember, we talked about Jericho. The walls were fortified. It was a stronghold. It was a place that was strategic, that the enemy could not overrun. Okay, if you look at this, let me make it bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. You can see the gate here. You can see the turrets at the top. These were places where people could be with arrows that had fire, pitch top fire on it, weapons, cannons, all kind of things could be used in these turrets. Okay, and the advantage is in this particular place, it has water surrounding it. and it is tall. So it's hard for the enemy to overrun and get in there. Okay. So it's called a stronghold. Okay. It's a place where the enemy or anyone has, has deep roots and has a strategic advantage. Okay. Okay. So we call that a stronghold. So let's keep going. Uh, Now, we're talking about breaking strongholds in the African American family. So here's what we're going to do. Now, again, a stronghold is, okay, fortified place. Now, what we're talking about is not the physical structure. We're talking about a mental and emotional place. Okay, it's in the mind and the emotions where the enemy hides and controls behavior by way of deception. Another definition of stronghold, which we're going to be using in this episode and the next two to follow, is it is a lie that we believe as truth that shapes our identity or limits our obedience to God. That's what a stronghold does. Okay. Strongholds are learned patterns. We learn them. They are reinforced to us by repetition and pain. Okay? Don't underestimate how important repetition and pain is. We like Pavlov's dog, we feel the pain and we back up. We're told not to do it, and we're also chastised, beaten, or abused. And so we associate pain with the stronghold. So now the stronghold has deep roots. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So let's go. Strongholds are mental and emotional fortresses. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a stronghold. Okay? Strongholds remain powerful, not because they're evil, but because they make sense. All right? Now, why are we going through all of this? Because a lot of times, many of us have spent our lives, our entire lifetime under a stronghold. It's not going to go away in a 90-minute session. It's not going to go away because we taught it for 2 weeks. We have to keep going back, keep saying what it is, keep exposing it, because some of us have been living under these strongholds for so long that we just believe they're true. And now we're passing them on to our children as true. And we're going to see that in this episode, okay? Now, we've been talking about overcoming resistance to change. One of the things we're going to talk about with the stronghold is a mindset. Okay? And it's a resistant mindset. It's a mindset that does not want to obey God. It's a mindset that has learned an argument that sounds wise, that feels safe, and quietly contradicts God. We call it common sense. We say it makes sense. Oh boy, it sounds right. Yeah, it makes me feel safe. But in the end, it contradicts what God says. And we're going to pull out some of them. Don't worry, we're going to pull out some of them because you'll be surprised that you're probably walking around today. I know I am being subject to these strongholds and not even know it. Okay, so we're talking about overcoming resistance to change. And part of that is dealing with a resistant mindset. You ever talk to people that matter what you say, they're just not going to change because they are under a stronghold. Okay, let me share this video clip with you real quick. Let me do this. Yeah. Um, this is a real short clip. Let me just, okay. And I'm sharing it because a lot of people mistake strongholds for demonic activity. Okay. So just because there's demonic activity does not mean that there is a stronghold. Okay. Let me see if I can do this. Okay. So let me share this clip with you. And it's only about a minute. Okay. Let me get out the way.
We don't realize how many strongholds and lies of the enemy are embedded so deeply within our promised land. Some of us are living within the promised land, and Jebusites, these fear, anger, rejection, depression, abuse, self-hatred is running rampant. And we might not have a demon, but we have a stronghold. And we have to deal with it. And that's why some of you go to a prayer line, or you go to a prayer and nothing maybe manifests, and you went through every renouncing, but you're like, I'm dealing with fear. I'm still dealing with anger. I'm dealing with rejection. I don't get it. Why can't they cast it out? What if you're not dealing with the demon? What if you're dealing with a stronghold?
So there you have it, right? See, and this is why the strongholds are difficult to overcome, because many of us have ceded it to the devil. We say that's just the devil. And we don't realize that it's one of these arguments that we have been sold on, that we continue to live under, and it contradicts what God says. It's a stronghold. It's taking root in your life. It's taking root in your family. It's how your family thinks. It's how you think. And you think that it is the gospel, but it's not. It's not a demon. It's a stronghold. Okay? So let's go through this resistant mindset. So resistant mindset, learned arguments, it's a learned argument. Let's go further. Okay. So many African Americans were taught, okay? You might want to jot some of these down. We were taught, don't trust systems. You would be surprised. So some of you may not be surprised, but you might be amazed to know how many folk who are old enough, been around long enough, they don't trust doctors. They don't trust the banks. They don't trust the legal profession. Okay? They don't trust systems. And where did they get that? They got that somewhere. Somebody erected a stronghold in their life. Okay? So they can get sick. And they won't trust doctors. They won't go check on their health. They won't check on their finances. They won't check anything because they don't trust systems. Okay? A lot of African American people, and we're not saying that other folk weren't taught the same thing. We're talking about the fact that for survival, to survive in these United States, many of us or our parents were taught these things. Don't get your hopes up. Okay? Now, they thought they were protecting you. Okay? Don't expect people to treat you fairly. Don't depend on promises. These are some of the things that we were taught. And you keep hearing them over and over again. Now you start repeating them as if they were true. Okay? So these are survival instincts. They what the elders taught us, what our parents taught us to help us survive. They're not sin. They're just things that they gave us to help us to survive. Some of us are still imprisoned by some of the things that were supposed to free us, because it became a stronghold. It became this rooted place in our lives, this illogical argument that we keep holding on to, even though it don't make sense, even though it contradicts the Bible and the Word of God, we still hold on to it. Okay? So God does not shame survival. So understand, this study is not to shame you because you survived, but he does invite each and every one of us to be changed. What got us to here is not what's going to take us to where we need to be. Hello? All right, here we go. Psalm 66:10, NIV. For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver. Okay? So what God has been doing in our lives is he will test us to refine us. He's not bringing you temptation. Okay? He'll bring you trials so you can see whether you're grown or not. But he's not going to tempt you to do right versus wrong. That's not what he does. The devil is the tempter. But God, because he wants to transform us, okay, he will allow us to be tested and refined and made better. All right? So we're going to talk about two things primarily: argument versus truth. Okay? Some people mistake arguments for the truth. Just because you got an argument does not mean that an argument is true. Okay? So, arguments, right? They're logical. Arguments are rehearsed. Arguments are emotionally charged. And arguments are also reinforced by experience. So, here you are. You got an argument. It makes sense. It's been rehearsed. It's full of emotion and passion. It's been reinforced by your own life experience. Okay? So, what do we do then? Argument on one hand, okay? And the argument is, all right, logical, rehearsed, emotionally charged, reinforced by our experience. But then the truth, on the other hand, when we're dealing with an argument, sometimes the truth can sound strange. The truth may be unfamiliar to you because you never heard it before. Oftentimes, when we're dealing with these arguments, truth can become disruptive. Truth does not always show up as something that we want to embrace. Truth will require us oftentimes to make a choice and to trust. Truth is anchored in God's character. So with truth, you got to have some faith. You got to believe. You got to believe that God is who he says he is, and this truth is true. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So arguments. I'm talking about some arguments that are common in the African American experience. Because what we're talking about is overcoming resistance to change and dealing with these strongholds. Here's the problem with strongholds. A lot of strongholds that we dealt with when we were young children, they were designed to help us survive. Maybe you got assaulted, maybe something bad happened in your life, and you erected a stronghold to protect you. Now, the thing that has been erected to protect you has become a prison, okay? Your heart got broken. So what did you do? You built a stronghold around your heart. And so now you say, I will never love again. That which was designed to help you now has imprisoned you. We see this with a lot of people, right? It started out with good intentions. It started out making sense. It was something that helped me make it through the fact that maybe, I was being abused. Maybe my parents were absent. Maybe there was something going on in my life. And so I built these walls. Now the walls have become so tall that I can't get out. they now have me trapped. Does that make sense? Okay. Good to see you, Marilyn. Okay, so let's go on. So let's look at some arguments that are common in the African American experience. Okay. Now, some of these we're gonna ask you, we're gonna need your help. Okay. We're gonna raise the argument, and then we're gonna look at some things about the argument. Okay. I'm gonna raise some of them and ask you, have you ever heard about any of these? All right, here's one. Nothing is built for us. Have you ever heard that before? What about this? What about this? Authority always abuses power. Have you ever heard that argument? Okay. We got a couple of yeses. Okay. I'm assuming y'all talking about nothing is built for us. You've heard that, right? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now, here's another one. Okay. Authority always abuses power. Have you heard that? Okay. All right. You've heard it, right? I know I have. Okay. So these are arguments that are common in the African American experience. Here's another one. Hope makes disappointment worse. Have you heard that? Or some of y'all probably heard it like this. Don't get your hopes too high. Have you ever heard that? Let me put that in the comment field. Okay. Y'all heard that? Don't get your hopes too high. Okay. All right. So Lanice, good to see you. Okay. Okay. My sister Angie, good to see you. All right. Erica, good to see you. All right. All right. All right. So y'all heard this, right? Hope makes disappointment worse. Or we have it interpreted, don't get your hopes up too high, right? People tell you that, right? That's an argument. Okay? All right. Now listen, don't be trying to bomb my study by putting these comments in here, okay? All right. All right. There you go again. Okay. All right. So, yeah, some of you have heard it, okay? I'm just going to have to ask this young man to leave. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry, I had somebody keep trying to bomb my Bible study. Want money. This isn't the place. We just trying to get the word. All right. All right. Here's one that Sharon talked about. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. I've heard that. Okay. All right. Okay. So let me see if I can get another one up here. Faith doesn't change reality. You ever hear that? Have you ever heard that? Faith doesn't change reality. Okay, how much faith in the world it won't change reality. You ever hear that? Okay, these are arguments that we hear all the time in the African American experience. Okay, okay, yes, yes. All right, thank you. Okay, so just one. Okay, so let me see. I think I got another one that's like one that we probably hear all the time. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Now, you would think that somebody went to seminary because this sounds like theology, right? People are talking about faith don't change reality. Don't get your hopes up too high. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And here we are, we supposed to be the people of faith, but we brought into these strongholds. We brought into these arguments, right? And the tragedy is some of us are still sending out the arguments to other people. Okay? How about this one? We've seen this before. Okay? So, how many of these arguments have you heard before? How many of them have you heard before? You've heard any of them? Okay. Now, why are we bringing this up? Because as we were talking about before, we are trying to talk about overcoming this resistant mindset. Okay. This mindset that does not want to get rid of this negative thinking. Okay. So we're going to talk about overcoming this resistance to change. And this is what we got to do. Okay. So let's look. All right. So, yeah, somebody said y'all heard all of them, right? And you probably could name a few more of them, right? Now, what's really interesting about these is that most of us know on some level that these arguments are not true. But because mama told us, because daddy said it, because the pastor said it, because Big Mama and them believed it, we pass it on as the gospel. Okay? So we're going to just real quick, we're going to look at Rahab's mental breakthrough. Because if she could break through in her situation, surely you and I should be able to break through in our situation. Okay? So let's look at this passage. We read it before. We're just going to read it again. Joshua chapter 2, verse 1-7. That Joshua, the son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab: bring out the men who came to you and who entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may be able to catch up with them. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the roof. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Okay? Verse 11, Joshua chapter 2. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Okay, so key insight. I want to share this with you. Everybody in Jericho heard the same facts. Only Rahab changed her conclusion. Everybody heard the same thing. Rahab was the only one who changed her thinking. When you talk about overcoming resistance to change, everybody may hear the same thing you hear, but you may be the only one who changes your conclusion. Okay? Don't think that people don't change because they don't hear. People hear, but they don't change the conclusion. Rahab heard what everybody else heard, but she changed her conclusion. Okay? All right. She didn't deny danger. But what she does, look, this is key. She reinterpreted through God's sovereignty. She knew what her neighbors knew, that these people were formidable, that they were coming, that nothing had blocked them for 40 years. God took care of them in the wilderness, and now he was bringing them to their place, and that ultimately they were going to win. What did they do? They stayed locked up behind their stronghold and felt like If they stay in their stronghold, everything gonna be all right. Okay. Now, there's somebody I'm talking to tonight who feels like if I can stay in my stronghold, I'll be all right. They can't get in here. The walls are thick. I'm fortified. But Rahab heard that they were coming. She didn't know how they were going to get in, but she knew that her stronghold, because she lived, get this, the walls of Jericho were at least 20 feet wide. Two chariots could ride side by side on the walls of Jericho. Okay. She lived in a house that was built inside the wall. Y'all didn't get that. She lived in the stronghold. That's where she lived, in the stronghold that was fortified, and they kept telling her it could never be penetrated. But she believed that the God of these folk was strong enough to overcome that fortress. Okay, does that make sense? Now, I'm talking for a minute about naming the lie. Okay, y'all ready? Let's name the lie. Okay, so a lot of times we don't name our strongholds because they sound like wisdom. You know, honey, I ain't gonna never let nobody hurt me. Sounds like wisdom, right? It doesn't sound like a stronghold, but lies are just like that. They sound like wise things to do. So when you stay in your stronghold and you don't let nobody in and you never go out, you're isolated. Yeah, your heart got broken, but you know, you got to learn to love again. You got to learn to come out. You got to learn to trust people, trust God again. Okay. But the lie sounds like you're wise. Okay. So now they said this of Jesus. Okay. I believe it's in Luke chapter 9, but it says Jesus responds to a father who tells him essentially, I took my disciples to your boys and they could do nothing. And he says, the father says to Jesus, if you can, help us, help us. Jesus says, but he's incredulous. If you can? That's what Jesus said. What do you mean, if you can? Everything is possible for one who believes. Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. Okay? Now, think about this. I don't want you to put it in the comment field. Good to see you, Felicia. A belief that you hold that sounds wise. What is a belief that you hold that sounds wise? Or something that protected you when, but something that now limits you by. Okay? Think of those three things. A belief that you hold that sounds wise. You know, I don't trust the government. I don't trust doctors. You know, I'll never see a lawyer. You know, whereas you're being sued to the hilt, right? This, whatever it was, it protected me when I was young. It protected me when I was single, when I was on my own. It protected me when I didn't know what to do. Yeah, but now it limits me by, okay? Because understand, here's the whole thing about the stronghold. Strongholds became strongholds because at one point they were helpful. At one point it was good. Now you got to ask yourself, have I outgrown my stronghold? I mean, you still think there's a boogeyman under the bed? Okay, I'm just saying. Okay. All right. Common lies to listen for. Woo! We getting ready to go deeper. Y'all ready? We're getting ready to go deeper. Okay, here we go. Okay. These are some lies. Have you ever heard any of these? This is just how life is for us. God helps, but don't expect too much. Change is temporary. Authority can't be trusted. Pain is normal. Healing is suspicious. Have you heard any of these? Okay. Now, if I told you every one of these on the screen is a lie, some of y'all start arguing me right now. You can't trust authority. God does help, but you can't expect him to do everything. Change is temporary. Change is not long lasting. Reverend, you don't know my family. You don't know us. This is just how life is for us. Okay. Now, how lies become strongholds. Stay tuned. Listen to this. Listen to this. A lie does not need to be extreme. It only needs to go unchallenged. When you hear a lie and you don't say nothing, you give that lie the strength to start becoming a stronghold. That's where our country is. Okay? That's why we still tell people when you hear lies, you got to say something. You just can't acquiesce and say, hey, it's not going to bother anybody. Who cares if they say it was X, Y, or Z? No, a lie doesn't need to be outrageous. It just needs to go unchallenged. How many lies have we heard in our lifetimes that we just didn't want to cook up any sand? We didn't want to create a fuss. We didn't want to bother anybody. We didn't want to call anybody out on the carpet. So we say, hey, I'll just let that go. And next time you heard that thing, it was more than a lie. It was the truth. Now, you could have cut it off when it was a lie, when it was little, when it was in its infancy. But because you said nothing and because you claim to be a child of God, folks say, hey, Sister so-and-so, she ain't had no problem with that. And it went unchallenged. Now, it's a stronghold. You see the connection? You see how that works? Let me give you something else, okay? What happens with strongholds, pain. A lot of times things get embedded in us because pain is what causes us to remember these strongholds, okay? We got punished, we got beat, we lost something of value, okay? And then we decided to assign a meaning to that lie. We start saying things, yep, you can't trust nobody. Why? Because I trusted so-and-so and look what happened. I got pain. So guess what? I'm going to go in my stronghold and I'm going to trust anybody. Does that make sense? No, but that's how it happens, okay? The meaning is repeated, okay? God forbid you don't trust nobody, then somebody else lets you down. Now you start saying, I told you, you can't trust anyone. And so the belief gets reinforced. And then you start hanging around people who believe what you believe. They start saying, yep, you can't trust nobody. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Some examples of how resistant mindsets were discipled. They formed intentionally and unintentionally through families, history, institutions, and repeated disappointment. Okay, so here's what happens. When we talk about being discipled, a resistant mindset, what we're really talking about is that there comes a time when we get exposed to a lie, or because of survival or whatever, we start erecting these strongholds. We have to feed them. We have to nurture them. We have to help them grow, okay? If they get exposed to the truth, it creates a problem, okay? So a lot of times we will spend all of our time trying to keep the truth as far away as possible. We'll deny the truth. We will criticize people who try to bring the truth. Ostracize. Oh, you can't listen to them. They are, Okay, so resistant mindsets, they get discipled. Okay, so let's look at this. Families often disciple resistance before they do faith. Now, when I came to understand this, this really clicked for me. I hope it can click for you. Not because they're faithless, but because families are protected. Okay? Before I learned to trust Jesus, listen to me, I learned to distrust police. Okay? Families often, to protect us, will sit down and tell us the facts of life, tell us to be careful here, there. Now, God may be on the periphery. God may be somewhere in the room, but he's not centered to the conversation. Because the family is thinking, I got to protect you. I can't be with you 24/7. I'm going to give you some rules so when I'm not around, this is how you behave. Okay? So families start discipling or instilling in their children resistance, oftentimes before they start teaching them about faith. And it's all because it's about survival. And, some of you, I'm told, who grew up in the South, understand this a lot, that you had to be told. The story of Emmett Till comes up in my mind frequently, how he came from Chicago and he did not understand the culture that he was walking into. And if he had grown up in Mississippi or Alabama or some of those Southern cultures, he would have had as a protective group, a family who would have taught him and discipled him in resistance before they discipled him to Christ, because they would have been trying to protect him. Don't talk back to people. Don't look them in the eye. Don't do that. Now, up north, those are things that he did every day. Okay? So this stronghold was built in a lot of us growing up because our parents understood that if you did not know how to protect yourself, you might not be here. So what they did was they built strongholds. All right? And they put you in a silo. They put you behind these walls and said, don't you come out. And what they would do is, if you disobeyed those orders, a lot of times their punishment would be swift because they wanted to reinforce the message, because they didn't want somebody else to do it. Am I making sense? Okay. So, okay. So one of the things where we talk about these arguments, where they start out, is in families. So I'm gonna give you some examples. Okay. You can chime in and help me out with them if you've experienced any of them. Okay. All right. So don't tell nobody our business. Have you ever heard that argument? If you've heard that argument, just give me a yes. Have you ever heard it told to you or implied, don't tell nobody our business? All right. I'm waiting for you. All right. Okay. Let me see. I got a few people. Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. 100%. Yes. 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 I even got a yup. Okay. Yes. 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 Oh, here's one. Don't go out there and make me look bad. Yes, yes, and yes. All right, Fifi. Okay, so we've heard this argument, right? Let me break down the argument. Let's break it down, okay? What's going on? This is a stronghold that the family develops, okay? Okay? Here it is. Uh-oh. What's in this house stays in here. Woo! Boy, we're gonna be there. Don't put my business in the street. Oh, Ken. Oh my goodness. What happens in the house stays in this house. Yeah. Oh my, y'all. Okay, so let's unpack this. Okay, because there's something serious going on. Okay, and I'm not here to say that your parents are wrong, that you're wrong, but let's break down the argument. Okay, because this becomes a stronghold. Okay, so all right. So what was being taught? Okay, what our elders and family was telling us is silence is loyalty. Now, unless you think this is just an African American family issue, look at what's happening in our federal government, where loyalty is being insisted upon, and the people who are elected to lead us have all of a sudden lost their ability to speak. Okay? So the message is silence is loyalty. If you talk about this, you're disloyal to the family. Okay? Who wants to be disloyal to their family? Okay? So, why it made sense? Okay? It made sense because speaking up historically brought punishment, ridicule, or removal. So if you went around talking about stuff, you could get whipped. You could lose your job. You could get ostracized. That's the pain part. So if you didn't want to experience the pain, you shut your mouth. Am I making sense? Okay, so the way people kept folk in the stronghold was the fact that there's pain. That's the pain piece, okay? Punishment, ridicule, removal, ostracism, okay? All of that, okay? And or as Felicia said, you got a beating. Okay? Once you got a beating for talking about something that happened in the house, you learn, don't talk about anything in the house because I'll get beat. So it doesn't matter what it is in the house. It could be rape, it could be abuse, it could be anything. But you learn we don't talk about that. Okay? Or they'll do as Olivia Jackson said, they'll embarrass you. Right? In front of your brothers and sisters, in front of everybody. You don't want that, do you? Okay? So there's a cost. We call it a spiritual cost. Look at this. The spiritual cost when this has happened in your family is that you don't want to confess, because now confession is not safe, because you don't know if you tell mama that somebody touched you inappropriately, whether she gonna get upset and beat you. So you don't say anything. So they already tell you, don't go to the pastor, don't talk to the teacher, because this happened in the house. Okay? So the spiritual cost is confession now feels unsafe. And the whole reason we built the stronghold was to stay protected. So we learned, if you want to stay protected, you stay behind this wall. You keep your mouth shut. You don't tell anybody what goes on here. Okay? Healing feels like you betrayed the family. Do you know that we have a historic problem with African American people failing to go for mental health. Because we got taught a long time ago, if you talk to a psychiatrist, if you have to talk to a shrink, you're going to betray us. You know, they're going to put these thoughts in your mind. They're just going to brainwash you. Okay? So even trying to get healing feels like you betrayed your family. So what do people do? They stay in the stronghold. Transparency feels like you're being reckless. Because everybody that warned you, don't tell nobody. Now you running around, running off your mouth, telling everybody about our family secrets, and you're being reckless. You don't care about the people you're going to hurt. That's a strong impetus to stay quiet. Am I making sense? Okay. Now, you ever hear this argument? You can't depend on nobody. You ever hear that? You can't depend on nobody. Okay? Anybody? Have you ever heard that argument? You can't depend on nobody. Okay? Ken Carter says yes. Betty Gilliard says yes. Gloria Graham says yes. J.M. Carter says yes. Elizabeth Jackson, yes. Way too often. Brenda Perry says yes. Okay, all the time. Yes, yes, yes. And you can only depend on me and your mom. Ooh, that is a stronghold. Yes. Okay, so let's see what's going on when we hear that. Okay. Still living by it. Okay, let's see what's going on. You can't depend on nobody. So here's what's going on. What was being taught? Self-reliance is survival. The only way you're going to make it in this world is you got to take care of yourself. Is that a bad lesson? No. But if I take it to a extreme, it becomes a stronghold. Okay? So what was being taught was self-reliance is about survival. Okay? Now, how it was discipled, how we got it as kids, when we handled things, we got praised. Hello? Children got praised for quote unquote handling it. Your emotional needs were minimized. If you had to ask for help, you were looked at as weak. Does it make sense? All right. Okay. Because we were taught self-reliance and survival. So children got praised. The child who could handle it got praised. The child who couldn't handle it get no praise. They didn't get, oh, you're going to do better next time. They get nothing. So you wanted to be the child who handled it, who didn't need to be hugged or held or patted on the back, you know, because when you needed help, you know, they put you off in the corner. You know, he got issues. He has issues. And so you learn that if you're going to make it in this world, you got to do it by yourself. Am I making sense? Okay, so the spiritual cost. Prayer becomes the last resort. It's not the first thing the family does. Listen, a lot of these issues we talk about African-American family, a lot of the families were religious families. But a lot of times the last thing they did was pray. They taught kids that community wasn't necessary. That we trust God in theory, but we don't trust him in practice. We trust him on Sunday morning, but we can't trust him from Monday to Saturday. Hello? All right. I'm just trying to help you work through this. Okay, so let's look at this. We all right? Y'all still with me? Okay, so have you ever heard this one? Don't get your hopes up. Let me know. Have you ever heard that one? Don't get your hopes up. Now, this is a stronghold that you got to be careful, because you can knowingly or unknowingly pass this on to your children. Okay? Yes. Okay. Yes. 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 Don't get them too high, right? Yes. All right. And yes. Okay. So we want to try to figure out what's going on with these strongholds. Because these, now let's see what's going on. Okay. All right. Let me take that off. Let me show you what's going on. So what was being taught? Expectation leads to pain. Don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up too high, because you might fall. You might miss it. So I'm here to build this fortress to protect you, so your feelings don't get hurt. Okay? So we building the fortress to protect you. Okay? So we were taught expectations lead to pain. And people say it to you, honey, I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to be putting too much into this, because, you know, when it doesn't pan out, what's going to happen? You're going to be hurt. Okay? Let's look at this. Now, I apologize if my screen over here looks like I'm having a lot of buffering, but I'm gonna keep going. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just make the screen bigger so you can just see the print, and you won't have to see me lagging behind in real time. Okay. Let me do this. Okay. So some of you may recognize this. You may have had family that when you achieved, they never celebrated. Okay? Or if they did, it was always on the low key. It was always, we're not going to make a big deal about it. Your dreams, I want to be this. They will always mock them as, being unrealistic. You can't do that. Stay, try something else. Don't, okay? And when you were optimistic, they called you naive. Okay? This is how we get these messages put in us, and how these strongholds take effect in our lives. Okay? So what happens is we get discipled through this, because, if you ever been around a family, the child may be a great achiever. Nobody wants to say to them, you're doing a great job. Oh, wow, you can become anything, because we don't want them to feel emotionally let down when they don't achieve it. So we help them build this stronghold, and we say that we're protecting them. But oftentimes, because they don't get nurtured, loved, and celebrated. We just helping them build these walls. And when the wall gets high enough, they never gonna try. They're never gonna try to become, they're never gonna try to do, they're never gonna try to succeed. And now you're trying to prompt them to get out of your house and become something, but you already told them, don't get your hopes up too high. Y'all see this? Okay. Now, these are arguments that you and I have been fed all of our lives. Okay? So, that's how we got it in us. What about the spiritual implications of that? You have faith, but you don't expect nothing. You have prayer, but you don't anticipate. Even when you're joyful, it's guarded. Because you don't want to look like you are happy and excited about what God's doing in your life, because, as soon as you shout, as soon as you express joy, it's going to go, the bottom's going to come out. And our children look at us. And when we should be shouting for joy, we are running around feeling bad because we have brought this. Don't get your hopes up. Soon as you look like you got a clear runway, something bad's going to happen. You got to guard yourself. You got to protect yourself. Making any sense? Okay. Let me continue, because what happened is a lot of us don't even realize that we have been living in these strongholds, or that we have been passing these strongholds on to our family, and some of us are still living in them. Okay, so those are family strongholds. Let's look at some historical discipleship strongholds. Now here it is. Here it is. Let me ask you about this one. Have you ever heard, we've seen what hope costs? Everybody ever tell you that? Yeah, we've seen what hope costs. People will tell you these things, and they sound like words of wisdom. They sound like little caveats that come out of the book of Proverbs, but they contradict what God says. And they create strongholds. Okay? So let's look at this one. Trying to get this screen to move. Okay. Now, here's what you need to know. It's good that we talk about this on Dr. King's birthday, because history did not just inform us as a people, it trained us as a people. Okay? We've not just been informed by history, we have been trained by history. Okay? We know our place. We don't strive to go beyond where we feel comfortable. Okay? So let me see if I can get this up on the screen. I think I better go back to the giant screen, because I'm kind of okay. While my screen is trying to make up its mind about what it wants to do, let me do this. Okay, so history trains us, okay? And so we got to be careful, because now we're training our children. So we believe broken promises and public betrayals. That's why some of us, we don't trust anybody. We don't trust the institutions, because we have been taught all they're going to do is break your heart. They're going to break your promise, and then they're going to betray you in public. Okay? So the message learned is this: that if we have any progress, it's going to be temporary. That the protection, whatever it is going to be fragile. Okay? And this is particularly apropos in light of the fact that it is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday today. Many folk believe that the gains that they made in the 60s, they're temporary. The protections, they're not going to be permanent. They're fragile. You know, you can have protection today, and tomorrow the courts can just take it all away. Okay? So we learn and we teach our children, don't trust the institutions. Okay? All right. So okay. Now, oh, there it is. Okay. So, in light of all of this, you and I at this place where we got to make up our mind. Okay. How is disciple? You find people, older people, don't even have to be older. They start teaching us from very early on to be suspicious of institutions. You know, no matter what it is, you know, you know, don't trust people. Okay. Okay. So what happens is, because we are suspicious, there we go. Okay. Because we're suspicious of institutions, we don't participate in institutions. We don't do anything with the institutions because we feel like, you know, what's the use? It's not going to work out. It's all against you. It's not going to, no matter what you do. Okay. So cynicism toward reform. Faith gets compartmentalized from public life. And this happens a lot, even with church people. We have faith, but we don't want to connect it to the public life. So our faith stays in church, and we won't vote, or we won't do anything to engage with the culture. Okay. So and this is for people who teach us, look, don't get involved with institutions. All the while not knowing that sometimes it's the very institution that makes rules that decide whether or not you're going to survive and what the quality of life you're going to have. So spiritual cost is this: difficulty believing in long-term transformation. We believe that God can get you to heaven, okay, but he can't take care of right now. So many of us have a God who we trust for heaven, but we don't trust him to deal with history. Because the message we've been taught is you can't trust the institutions. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Let me see if I can get one more in here, then we'll have to move on. Okay? Okay. All right. So the whole idea is that when you and I realize that a lot of these things that we've been taught, they sound wise, they sound spiritual, but they were really designed to work as strongholds. Okay? So here's another one: surviving over thriving, okay, over flourishing. So what history taught us is the goal is endurance, not abundance. So when you look at history and people start telling you that, hey, you know, you're not really supposed to thrive. You're just supposed to live your life and, you know, go on to meet your maker. And so we got young people who don't believe in flourishing. All they want to do is survive, because that's the message that they have been taught. That's what they have brought into. Okay, so we got to be able to tell our young people, tell our older folk that God created us for more than survival. Okay, he created us to do more than endure. He wants us to have abundance. He wants us to be fruitful. And you can see this argument in a lot of Black America when we are suspect of other folk who look like us who have resources. You know, we start thinking if they have been blessed with abundance, or they had to do something evil, they had to do something underhanded, they had to do something, you know, suspect, because we have been taught that we're only made to endure. We're not made to flourish. We're not made to have an abundance. Okay? All right. Now, that's what history has taught us. Okay? So, let's see if I can get this. Okay. There we go. Now, my computer is going real slow, so I apologize for any tardiness concerning this one. Okay, so let me just wrap up with this idea: is that if we're going to break down these strongholds, okay, when we were talking about this idea of survival over flourishing, okay, the goal we were taught was to endure. Okay, the goal was to just put up with it and not be abundant. So we got to the place where we just settled. Okay, people start praising you for settling. You know, not trying to reach too high, not trying to become successful, not trying to do more. Okay, and then when people tell you, if you flourish, you're going to go into a world that you don't know about. You're going to experience things that you don't know. And so we tell them, stay safe. Okay? Stay over here where everybody lacks, everybody doesn't have. Okay? So even when children do things that are excellent, a lot of times we as elders now, we guard it with anxiety. Instead of being all out happy for that child, we are worried. We're anxious about what's going to happen when they get to the real world. Okay? The spiritual cost. Abundant life, we redefine it as simply getting by. And a lot of people in their Christianity, that's all they have been doing. They haven't been thriving. They haven't been flourishing. Jesus said, John chapter 10, the thief comes to kill and to steal and destroy, but I come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And they don't have that. Okay? The kingdom vision feels too big. God can't want me to have all of that. So we settle. Does that make sense? Okay? Now, I got to put a pin in it right there, but next time, remind me when we get back together again that we're going to talk about the educational and economic system, these systems of our world, and how they are just aligned to help us to live in these strongholds. Okay? All right. So at this point, I'm going to ask if you have any prayer requests, which you kindly put them in the comment field, and we'll be glad to pray for you. We do ask that if you are able and you can support this ministry, we would certainly appreciate anything you can do to help support us. Okay? Please let somebody else know about this Bible study. We are attacking some real strongholds, things that are in people's lives on a daily basis. Okay? So, would you just put your prayer requests in the comment field, and we'll be glad to deal with that. Okay? Okay. So before we go, I want to tell you that at the New Hope Church, we're always about trying to do something to engage our community, to engage our church, and actually to help make better disciples. Okay? In addition to this Bible study, we have a Bible study on Monday night where Reverend Tyler is teaching about intentionality. We also have a Bible study on Wednesday at 6 a.m. That is a Zoom call for men. Okay, so we're grateful that we've been averaging about a dozen men every Wednesday morning who get up and look into their Bible and study about God. So we thank God for that. On Wednesday at 12 noon, if you're available during lunchtime on Wednesdays, we have a Bible study called The Word for Today. and that's taught by yours truly. Then on Thursday night, 7:30, is our major Bible study, and that is open to any and everybody. And we thank you for your participation. All right, so we're getting ready to go. Let me see if I can't get some of these off my screen, see how that works. All right. Well, we are grateful to God for being God all by himself. All right. Also, we see Sharon has put some names in the chat. Debbie, Walik, the Canonis family, Jenny, Rosalind, Fennell, Charles, Lucretia, and Ace. Okay. So we're going to be praying for each and every one of them. And wow, you may not see me on the screen. I'm Let me do this. Okay. All right, beloved. Trying to sit there, add me back to the stage. Pray for StreamYard on tonight. Be with us. Continue to guide us and to lead us. We come to pray for family. We come to pray for our loved ones who are in the hospitals, nursing homes, intensive care, who are sick. And we just ask you, God, that you would be a healer, that you would be a doctor, that you would provide and make a way for each and every one of them. We ask also that you would bless those who have experienced great joy, maybe got a new job, had a new addition to the family, and all the ways that you bless us. We just want to take time to say thank you. I praise you, God, for everybody who got on this Bible study. And I pray, God, in the days, weeks, years to come, that people would tune in and would come to understand that we built these strongholds, but you're the God who can break down every argument that doesn't make sense and help us to realize that you're the God who cares for us, who makes ways for us. Bless us and keep us is our prayer. Bless the New Hope Church family. And we ask all of these blessings in the mighty name of our Christ. Amen. Well, my brothers and sisters, I want to say to you, therefore, my beloved brothers and sisters, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know your labor is not in vain in the Lord. God bless you all real good. All right. All right. Good night, my brothers and sisters. We're just going to close out the hard way.